You are listening to local independent public radio, The Maverick, KMSU FM NHD Mankato, KMSK Austin, broadcasting from the campus of Minnesota State University, Mankato. Big ideas, real world thinking. This is our interview that we did with John Flansburgh. Boy, we can't thank you enough again for taking time out, because you guys are honestly the busiest band, and you've replaced James Brown, and you're just always on the go, and especially overseas now. But we really
this is been the Australia thing. I have to say it's in the past we haven't stayed that long. So like. You're there for a week and you just accept that you're not going to get used to it at all. But to be there for a couple of weeks and not get used to it at all is really sort of bizarre. And also the 20-hour plane rides there and back are just like that's something your body's never going to get used to. So I'm a little bit turned around, and now I'm going to the UK for a spell as well, and I can't believe how well I'm going to get to know melatonin and all those drugs.
Well, yeah, so you're going to be in the UK, and then like a month later, another leg of the US tour starts up.
Yeah, we actually have we've got quite a bit of American stuff happening. And in sort of different places. Like we're playing in the South, and we're playing on the West Coast, and we're playing on the East Coast. So it's like it's not just like we're crawling across the United States, taking off territories. We're kind of bouncing around, but it'll be good. We're playing a lot of great venues and a lot of double headers, which is really fun for us because we get to do a lot of different material and different shows, and it's also just a way to see. There's a small chance that we might be able to do something touristy, or just kind of get some rest on the second day, which is because we're not moving. Yeah.
Now, are you looking forward to going to any place when you're in the UK? Are you going to make a pilgrimage to some Beatles sites?
Yeah, I haven't. I've really, up until recently, I've kind of given up on doing anything. We're moving a little bit faster there. I guess we'll be on a bus, so I don't even know. We're going to Cambridge, which I think will be interesting. I've been there once before, and that was a kind of cool town. And we're going to Ireland as well as Scotland. So there's a whole lot of different things to kind of take in. But we're moving pretty fast. We have a couple of days in Dublin, and that'll be nice. But overall, it's we're definitely chained to the all-you-can-rock buffet.
Well, I know that people are super excited that you're coming over there, just from all the posts that people have been sharing on the Miscellaneous Tea chat page, and how excited they were too at Australia. Folks were keeping up to date with what was happening over there. It's fantastic that you get to go over and see some of these folks that you don't get to. When was the last time that you guys toured the UK?
Well, I feel like it wasn't that long ago. Was it in the late teens, the mid teens? We were there. Our stock in They Might Be Giants in the 21st century, started at a pretty low ebb, because they're very much thank you and now please leave kind of music culture. I mean, we had a glorious run in the 90s, and then it just seemed like we couldn't get arrested, in the 2000s. So things have kind of come back for us a fair bit there. I mean, it's funny, before we actually had hit records in the UK, we played there all the time, because there's a really large kind of micro circuit of hipster venues. But then once we graduated to bigger venues, that was much harder to sustain, and then like people just weren't interested on that level. We couldn't sell a theater out until probably like 2010, and there's no explanation for that. I mean, it's having a 40-year-long career is not exactly like super well-charted territory. It's like at a certain point, it's like people might have like nostalgic feelings for you, and then it's like, is it nostalgia for the nostalgia? It's like it's hard to even know what's going on at a certain point. But
was your song used in Stranger Things?
Yeah, exactly. It's nice to just have like such a solid level of interest in a place that's actually so far away.
Yeah, well, we have some questions that listeners submitted. Not that many this time because it was kind of like, hey, this is coming up like right now. So you have a couple of days to do it. And then we have some questions of our own. But I just want to say your shows that you played in the Twin Cities were just amazing. You went to both of them, Tim.
I saw the second night at First Avenue, and then we were both at the Fitzgerald.
Yeah, and
amazing shows.
We actually were up in the
in the booth.
The booth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The opera seat when.
And it was so funny because everybody was like, "Oh, of course they did that for you," but it was like, no, I think that was just a coincidence because the year before our friends were in that booth too, and I tried to get front row tickets again and got booted out because I had left a spot on the end of the aisle. And then I went, I'm gonna get one of those big fancy seats and go from there. And I'm so glad I did.
Highly recommend it.
Yeah. But just an amazing show.
Those are really different shows. Like what? Like did he just? I don't get to talk to that many people who actually went to like two shows that diametrically opposed to each other. Like which was more interesting to you? I'm going to guess it was the St. Paul show.
Yeah, and that one was so Mink Car heavy too, and I just love that album. And it was just really cool being in the opera seat too.
Right. I mean, it was a sit-down show, so like when we put the show together, we were thinking more like it's a concert show than a club show, and just kind of tried to tune into. I mean, it kind of frees you up. It frees you from the tyranny of like up-tempo material and kind of trying to get the audience energy up because there's almost like a governor on how frenetic a show can be with an audience that's actually sitting down.
And I forget you sang at the end of the Fitzgerald show, you and John sang together a song and it blew everybody's mind, and I'm blanking on what that was. It was an older song, but that's what everybody was talking about. Like, they never sing that together alone on the stage. It was like the old days.
Was it Did we do Istanbul as a duo?
Yes.
I think
that's what it
yes.
was. And that just blew.
Yeah.
That's what everybody was talking about on the way out. Everybody's like, oh my God, I can't believe they did that. And
that's so. I'm glad it was effective because actually recently when we were in Australia, because we're doing these multiple night stands, and it's kind of hard. I feel like it would be kind of a jerky move to not do like one of our biggest songs just because we don't want to repeat ourselves from one night to another. Like I think some people might feel kind of ripped off if we didn't do Istanbul, but we had before we had the full ensemble and could do this sort of big deal expanded version of Istanbul with like improvisational stuff and all that jazz. We had this other duo version of the song that was kind of that was really like in the 80s. That's how we really delivered the song live, and so I just thought like let's just bring it back, and I think doing it at the end of the show is actually better because when we did it in Australia one night, it just seemed like a UFO passing over. But I think maybe we did it too early in the show, or I'm not sure. I think we just kind of left the audience confused. But then John was pointing out that we had actually done that version of the song, like the last time, like it was. We hadn't played it that way for 20 years, but the last time we had played at that venue, we had done that. We had done it.
Oh,
so it was just like, oh, weird. Like
yeah.
how, it's like you think you're pulling out something that's like this very like rare thing, and then it turns out it's actually something that everybody in the room is quite familiar with. So I don't know. It was just. I'm glad to hear that it worked. Yeah. I think that might have been very, very early on when we kind of brought it back for this decade.
We even talked to folks. A lot of our listeners brought their children with them to the Fits, and that was their first concert experience, and they were just like over the moon. Like they were like, kids, it's not always this good when you go to see a concert. It's not always going to be this great. But yeah, people just it was just fantastic. It was definitely a highlight for a lot of us.
Oh, that's great.
That's
great.
Boy, let's get into some of the questions that we have.
Sure.
Let's see. Well, I'll start with one. This is from Charlotte in Minnesota. What is the craziest, most dedicated thing that a fan has done out of admiration for the band?
Well, to be perfectly honest, I mean, I wouldn't say it's necessarily the craziest, but just the sort of the construction of the They Might Be Giants wiki at
my goodness,
TMBPTMBG.net has been it's really changed our own perspective. I think so much of what we've done in the past like 30 years would be just kind of lost in the ether if it wasn't for the wiki, because the wiki allows us to actually track what we're doing in a really systematic way. And it's like I don't keep a diary. Like I don't keep notes on what we do or like save set lists or any of that stuff. So it's like having this incredible resource is just such a huge gift to us. So I'm very grateful that the people who put it together and all the people who've contributed to it have helped us in that way, because it's just it helps us be for instance, John had obviously referred to the wiki, I guess, when he was talking about that show, or he was somehow aware of it, but I can't imagine it's just from his memory, although John has got a crazy steel trap memory, but still, I don't like, he's not like, Marty Beller, our drummer, actually remembers what songs we play at various shows, which kind of blows my mind.
That's a superhero power.
Yeah, exactly. Or maybe a super villain power. Hard to tell.
They never forget.
Yes.
Oh, I would agree with you, because when we do They Might Be Playing They Might Be Giants Day, all the requests that we get, and to be able to track them down, I rely heavily on that page for just looking it up and being able to find it quickly, because there are so many 1 to 2 minute songs in your discography, so I have very limited time to get the next song in sometimes, and without that page, it would be just so much scrambling.
Didn't you create a disc of bathroom break songs?
I do have one year I said I have to go to the bathroom, but I can't think of a song long enough, so everybody sent in these suggestions, so then I made a disc of just the bathroom break songs. That gives me 5 to 6 minutes to take care of business.
They're not a lot of them.
No.
Although there is a supercut of spy improvisations that I guess goes on for 9 days. It's one of the most if your appreciation for outside jazz has really evolved, I guess that would be a satisfying listen. I listened to it and I was like, wow, this is like a torture chamber of musical ideas.
I don't feel that way.
Really? You enjoyed the... I mean,
I do.
I think it's one of those things where if you're in the room, it's exciting, but like just listening to the entire output of it, it's so... I mean, if you're in the room, you're participating in it. It's like that's part of the fun of it, is that it's just all happening. But I don't know, I just think back to the times that I've heard it played, so it kind of puts me back there where it was like, oh my God, I can't believe they're doing this. So it's kind of like reliving that concert moment a whole bunch of times. Sometimes I think maybe we should like split the improv section, like introduce it after a different song. I wonder if like the results would be different.
That would blow some minds, I think.
Probably.
Anytime you do something like that, people are like, "What?"
Right. Well, there's no reason. It doesn't have to be, written in stone that it just be that. So.
Yeah.
And we have the hand signals, so we can all lean on our previous. No, we wouldn't have to make too many changes.
What are the hand signals?
The hand signals in SPY are like to guide the people who are improvising together on the same idea.
Okay.
So it's like, besides like doing like individual beats, which is like, just like, holding up fingers and, doing those hits, like a James Brown kind of thing. Mm-hmm. There's like the fist just means free improvisation. So you just hold down your fist and the band will, you point to who you want to participate, and then you hold down your fists, and whoever's in improvises. And then there's sort of like putting your thumb out like you're hitchhiking, kind of waving it to the side means just do something different. So like, the band will be doing one kind of vibe, and it's even though it's a bunch of different ideas with necessarily no agreement, it comes out sounding a certain way. And then when you say like just do something completely different, everybody doing something completely different will often have like a dramatically contrasting texture. So that's like something we lean on a lot. We also have one specific one, which is like knitting needles, kind of holding your hands like knitting needles, which just means knitting factory. Which was like back in the 90s, the Knitting Factory was sort of the center of just like improvisational art music and free jazz kind of stuff. And so it just means do something light but crazy.
Okay.
So, and I'm trying to think of what other hand signals we have.
Is there a thumbs down?
There's no thumbs down. I mean, the thumbs out is essentially just means move it along. So that kind of gets the job done. No, I don't know if there are any other. I'm sure there are some. At least a couple more hand signals, but I can't remember what they are.
And do you do most of that, or do you and John do that?
We both use the signals.
Okay. Because now I want to watch it next time it happens.
Yeah. I mean, it helps kind of give it more of a shape, like it goes. Otherwise, it sort of keeps the ball rolling in kind of an immediate way, it just allows the person conducting to kind of get more kind of colors out of the ensemble.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love the inside baseball for bands on the stage. It is like
inside baseball. It is very much like baseball. It is like pitching and catching.
Yep. Toss a beat to somebody else for once. Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, I have a question from Jody in Ohio who asks, what is your favorite non-instrument you have used on a song?
Non-instrument? Well, I mean, I guess when we were doing the Apollo 18 album, it was at the very beginning moments of kind of like the Fairlight music computer had come out a couple years before, which is like the sound of like Do They Know It's Christmas? Like at the beginning, you hear that kind of like kettle drum thing going like, or like Peter Gabriel albums have a lot of Fairlight on them. And that was like this embryonic version of sampling where you'd have a very short music sample and you maybe stretch it out, but it always sounded very truncated, kind of close to like a mellotron, which is like the Strawberry Fields Forever flute sound. But when these kind of prosumer musical instruments like the Casio SE1 keyboard that we got right before we started working on, I mean, I guess, the Casio SE1 is on Flood a bit. Like Istanbul is a good example, actually. The studio version of Istanbul has almost all the drum sounds on it were created by hitting a drumstick on like just some object in my apartment, like the metal plate at the bottom of the refrigerator was only like 5 feet away from where the keyboard was, and I could sample that, and it made like a metallic kind of clank that's perfectly musical. It doesn't sound like a sample, you're not thinking like, oh, this sounds like a James Brown record. It's just going like gonk, but it was just this having that new device and this new technology that was so easy to use and sounded so good. All the sounds were completely fresh and fun, and nothing else sounded like that. So like there's a like in Istanbul on the like even old New York, where I'm like there's kind of like a sort of a tooting flute type sound. Mm-hmm. That's just me blowing over a Fanta bottle, like just the top of a bottle, and I just tuned one note of it to a pitch, and then the rest of the keyboard played all the same sample, but changed, but would vary the pitch, so you could play a chord on it, and that's really what you're hearing is just the sound of one tuned Fanta bottle tone, just being, creating the chord.
Wow.
And even like the guitar, like the guitar on Istanbul, that is just one, kind of dirty, distorted guitar truncated. Like it's probably a longer chord that I played, and I just clipped it. So, and it's just repeated and played on a keyboard. Almost everything except like the violin and the trumpet on Istanbul are samples. Like
Wow.
the thing that sounds like an accordion is actually a melodica. The guitar sample is just like a very short truncated sample. There's the Fanta bottle, and there's all this percussion that was just things kind of getting bonked. So, I mean, that's probably like the biggest example of kind of home sound making. But then again, like once we started working on Apollo 18, we were just like doing that. Like the whole album is constructed of those kind of weird home baked efforts of sampling, and that was like sampling gone mad. We spent so much time just confabulating sort of song textures. It was really odd. We really got lost in there.
Do you still do that? If you're walking around and you hear a really interesting sound, do you record it?
I mean, a little bit, but it was such a. I guess the truth is, it was like because it was emerging technology, it just seemed like us really. We had been working with drum machines for a bunch of years, and those sounds were incredibly interesting at first, and then the excitement kind of came down a little bit. I guess like home sampling is not quite the thing that animated me then, but there was definitely it was definitely a super exciting time. I don't know. I mean, I have wandered under the BQE and like the song. There's a song called "With the Dark" that has at the beginning of it has a field recording that I made underneath the BQE, which is like a highway that ran right next to my apartment. But it's also like it's like walking into traffic. So I was underneath, basically recording the trucks driving overhead, and it doesn't. I don't even know if it sounds like what it sounds like. It doesn't sound really like trucks. It just kind of sounds like a storm.
Oh, I love that.
Like a ghost, riders and things, she will send you down. She's in love with her broken heart. She's in love with the dark. She's in love with her broken heart. She's in love with the dark.
I'm getting tired of all my nautical dreams. I'm getting tired of all my nautical themes. Busting my pirate hump, rocking my peg leg stump. My mind naturally turns to taxidermy, to taxidermy.
Smashes to pieces. Crashes, crashes, smashes to pieces. Crashes, crashes, smashes to pieces. We're taking over. We're taking over. I looked around and you looked around, and soon we were there, leading the charge of the wrong, of the wrong, of the wrong, of the wrong. Plastic
Brian in California wants to know if you guys would ever consider performing at the Sphere in Las Vegas and creating an immersive experience with They Might Be Giants videos.
Wow, that would take so much work. And also, I think the thing about the Sphere is that all the stuff is really kind of beautiful, right? I mean, it's like this incredible expression of like the meaning of high def imagery. Our manager went and saw a fish show there. Saw fish at the Sphere.
Oh,
said
Phil
it was
did?
insane, and it said it was like a great show, and actually that the way they put together the light show and the visuals was actually really, really good. He was not. I mean, I've talked to him beforehand. He was not really that optimistic that it would be that compelling, because he just couldn't imagine that they would build a whole show around it because it's so site specific and it would just take so long to put together.
You guys already have quite a bit of visuals that you've used over the years, though, that would lend itself to that really well, I think.
Right. I mean, I would, listen, I would, if we could exist at that level of production value, so many things would be different than the way they are now. It would be great. Yeah, I mean, it would be super fun. I mean, the whole idea of the Sphere is kind of trippy.
Jane in Illinois is wondering if you do most of your composing on the guitar and if you have a favorite guitar to compose on.
Perfectly good question. I think, but I don't know if I really have a straight answer. I've written a lot of songs on this this very old and very easy to play Gibson archtop guitar, which is like an L48, which is the kind of post-war, kind of poor man's L5. Like it was just like a guitar that doesn't sing, it doesn't ring out, it just kind of goes like shoop, shoop, shoop. And I've written a trillion songs on that guitar. Because that's the guitar that's always around. Like I haven't really toured very much with it, and it doesn't really sound that good. It's very easy to play, and you can kind of bash out a song on it. But the truth is, I've written a lot of songs with the computer. I mean, I actually sitting with a keyboard in front of me, and coming up with a simple beat and a little bass line or a chord progression on the keyboard is just as often as how like songs come together.
I wanted to ask you, one of my favorite things that, you've been doing off and on, but you did when you were in Australia, was sharing your record hauls from record stores. Was there some really good record stores that you hit up on tour? And what are your favorite stores in New York that you go and shop at?
Well, I like the cheap ones because, that's kind of part of it, is like just kind of to me it just is like a very pleasant archaeological dig into the ephemera of like the 20th century. Like I just find it, like I find all of it very charming. Like the actual, I don't even need to buy anything, and I find the experience of just looking at all the stuff kind of satisfying in and of itself. My favorite record store in the world is probably the Princeton Record Exchange in Princeton, New Jersey, which is a couple hours south of New York, but they are, they are like super voracious in how much they flip through stuff. Like you go in there, and it's a completely different set of records than was there 6 months earlier. Like it's just they sell stuff so rapidly, and they're buying estates and just flipping them so rapidly. It's kind of remarkable. Sometimes stores kind of, the overpriced stores, nothing ever changes. So you go in there and it's like, oh, here's the same, $40, like kind of famous record from the 60s or whatever, and it's just like it's the same thing on the wall for years and years. But like Princeton Record Exchange, it's always changing, so it's very cool.
Yeah, and is there a record that you've been hunting for a long time that you haven't been able to find, or because it's so easy to pick stuff up, but it's always nice to have one that you want to find out in the wild. I'm literally just pulled out this record that I was looking for forever. It's a record. It's the songs from a movie called Privilege, and I don't think this is a movie that I saw when I was a young teenager. It starred this guy Paul Jones, who was the lead singer of Manfred Mann. He's a very handsome guy, and it's this movie that was made kind of at the height of the mod era, like when Roger Daltrey had bangs, like that very 60s, that very 60s. Well, kind of like in the after part of like Beatlemania, but like the mod thing, they dress very stylishly. It was like Swing in London, and but the idea of this kind of dystopian near future movie is that the youth of England are so dissatisfied that they vote into office a young person who's like, I guess, kind of irresponsible, and then it just becomes like an authoritarian country. And I mean, I can't really remember the plot of the film, but the truth is there were some musical numbers in the movie that are fantastic. And the movie, I guess, was in kind of a rights knot, so like the people who put the movie out like didn't own all the parts of it, so it wasn't played in theaters, or like it's just a movie that disappeared, like a lot of things that have complicated ownerships. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't a hit movie either, so it was like it was missing, but nobody was looking for it. One sort of notable thing is there's a song, the song "Free Me" on this album was covered by Patti Smith, and you know that Lenny Kaye, her guitarist, was the guy behind the Nuggets collection. Yep.
And he's like he's a huge record collector, and he heard this song and he was like, that would be a really sharp song to cover because nobody's heard it, and it's a really great track, so we'll just do it our way. And I don't think anybody even thinks of it as a cover. Like they just think, oh, it's a Patti Smith song. It's a good Patti Smith song, but it's actually from this movie Privilege. And so when I finally tracked down this soundtrack, I was super psyched. And it's not like it's a collectible record, but more than anything, it's just an obscure record.
Sure, yeah. Well, that's the kind of stuff we like looking for.
Well, the song, there's some great songs on this album. I mean, it's like every time I play this at if we have people over, it always gets comments because he's actually a great singer. He's part of that. I think he was hired very much as like a. If he came along today, he'd be like somebody on like America's Got Talent or The Voice or something. Like he's a pretty guy with a really good voice.
I see it all before me. My past are restless wander. My days and nights of torment. A world of misery. The bonds of retribution. Now laid so carefully. I cannot shed my pain so easily. Sympathy. Look, you need and love me. way out for me. I kneel before you, helpless. Is there somebody out there to take a chance on me? I don't pretend to virtue. I don't ask anything. But if you want to help me, my freedom's everything now. My spirit's broken, no will to live. My body's all aching, my hands are tied. And if you want to help me, please tell me if you can. What good is retribution without a helping hand? I need my freedom, not your sympathy. Look, you need and love me.
We're pre-recording this on October 28th, which means Halloween is right around the corner. And I was just wondering, are you a Halloween person, and do you have a favorite Halloween song?
I love the idea of Halloween tremendously. I haven't I don't go to Halloween parties. We've played a million Halloween shows, but I think if I had a more domestic life, I would totally embrace it. I think it's just really a fun idea. Everything about it just seems like fun. We actually, for a number of years, we had housekeepers who were, they were born again. I mean, they were they were very religious Christians, and they had a really big issue with Halloween.
Oh, sure.
And it was really like, it just seemed, because in almost every other way, they were completely, happy, funny people. They had a really good sense of humor. But anytime Halloween came around, they'd be like, "We don't do Halloween." It's just like, whoa. It's just like, it just seems so austere to not celebrate. It seems like such a harmless little left turn for the culture, but they took it as an attack.
Sure. Do you have a favorite Halloween song?
Oh, I mean, I think of Marty Beller Mask as kind of like our Halloween song.
That's a good one. Yeah. I love that. We actually go all in on Halloween, so we've been playing Halloween music since the 1st of October.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah,
that's great.
We love it. Although what we do to celebrate Halloween on the air is I have over 500 KTEL albums, so we number them, and people pick a number, and then we flip a coin to see which side to play, and then we roll dice to see which track to play. So, because the scariest thing for Tim and I is to give our playlist away to total chance. So you just never know what you're going to get on these KTEL albums. Sometimes it's great. Sometimes it's Canadian folk music in French, or pan flute, chariots.
Yeah. Wait, are those on KTEL records?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my gosh, you would not believe it. KTEL records are a minefield, so we call it radio roulette.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought KTEL records were all songs that had been hits.
Yep, but when it gets to the overseas international KTELs, especially Canada, lots of folk music, or even there's the Irish Rovers have a whole album. It gets into fiddle tunes.
Sure.
That kind of stuff. So
a record that I want to explore is there's a record by Jad Fair that's like a monster record.
Oh yeah.
I mean, some Jad Fair might technically be considered a tune out for radio people, but
not us.
But yeah, Destroy. Is it called Destroy All Monsters? I'm not. I feel like I feel like he did like a concept album that was just about monsters.
Yeah,
and that definitely is like a Halloween record.
I have that on CD, and it came with a booklet of like the drawings he made of the monsters. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
It's pretty fantastic.
Yeah, I've been listening to a little bit of Jad Fair recently, and it's just sort of reminding myself of like how interesting his scene was.
Yeah,
and he did
Japanese.
another collaborative record. I think the Destroy All Monsters record was some kind of collaboration with another person, and then he did right around that time, I think he did a collaboration with Daniel Johnston, and that's a really interesting, crazy record.
Yeah, and then he did one with Yola Tango as well, where they did like newspaper headlines.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which is
that's a really good one.
Pretty interesting.
I mean, I know the Yola Tango version of Speeding Motorcycle. Oh, that's Daniel Johnston.
Yeah.
Newspaper headlines. So that's an interesting idea.
Because and a lot of them are kind of there's some horror ones in there too, of like the Iceman of Minnesota and stuff like that. But yeah, that one's pretty fun to check out too, because it's just real short, goofy kind of songs to play. We love our half Japanese around here, and Daniel Johnston as well.
Yeah, the first like electric guitar I had was a cast off of half Japanese.
Oh, yeah.
It was something that had been like was in some like some video or some movie that they were working on very early on, and it just got like left behind, and that's how I inherited it from that production.
Well, that's cool. Well,
I mean, it was a very garbage. I mean, put it this way, it wasn't good enough for half Japanese. So, and I would imagine, I would imagine that they don't have like the strictest quality control on their musical instruments. I'm just guessing.
I think they said all you got to do is know
era.
how to plug it in, and that's what makes it music. Yeah.
Yeah. So there you go.
The double bat, the demon. It is time to run. It is time to hide. The face at the window. Stay inside. If they can get you, you know they will. Get you and get you good. The demon, the double bat. It's a dark night. Dark night, the night belongs to them. Monsters, demons, beasts. Stay inside. They can get you, you know they will. Get you and get you good. Get you and get you bad. Curse of the evil ones. The night belongs to them. It's double night.
Do you still have that guitar?
No. It went away long ago.
So somebody out there.
I wish I had any of the guitars that I had in the first 15 years of. There's a point where you're as a musician where, I mean, at least it seemed this way to me, is that you only had a instrument. So if you got a new instrument, you sold your old instrument to in order to get a different one. So you could kind of improve it. But I didn't have enough cash to hold on to anything.
Sure.
And also, I had over the years, I actually had a bunch of guitars stolen, which is always super annoying. Although I did just recently, I've been really preoccupied with TikTok for the last 6 months, to a point where I'm thinking about whether or not I should delete it. But because
I'm thinking the same thing.
I've kind of fallen into that cave. But Stephen Bishop, the yacht rock hitmeister, has a very active TikTok feed where he's just kind of talking about the history of his life and all the unlikely things that he did over the course of his career, which is kind of notable. Like, he's a very Zelig-like character in the 70s. He's always just like, here's me and John Belushi. Like, I'm writing the Animal House theme or whatever. It's like he's just always doing stuff. And but he did a post about how all the guitars he's ever owned have been stolen, and I sort of stopped feeling sorry for myself at that point, because he's really he managed to lose like a lot of really nice guitars over the years. So I guess it just happens. Or
it gets lost on airfare or something.
Yeah. I mean, you're just in circumstances where, like, suddenly it's like, oh yeah, and then all the gear disappeared. I mean, we had our entire touring truck, a little box truck, get stolen in the middle of the 90s, and everything just like suddenly everything was gone and it never came back. Wow. So it was just like, that's, I guess, the way that's how that went. So.
Jeez, I can't imagine.
Yeah, we were once doing a show in like the mid '90s after we had all our stuff stolen, where we were doing a show on a college theater, and somebody stole my second guitar, my backup guitar, off the stage, like in the middle of the show, which it seemed like an act of kleptomania, like unprecedented. Like
the thrill is getting caught, I guess.
Yeah, I mean,
crazy.
And I got so pissed off that I just like totally berated the crowd, and I mean, in the fullness of time, I'm kind of embarrassed at how I mean, they didn't steal my guitar, but I just felt like I was just like, you kids, like, you let this guy do this thing. I sort of felt like, in some weird way, I think I just felt like they were complicit, like that it could somehow have happened with everybody watching. It just seemed so bogus. And then like 3 hours later, somebody came back to the venue and returned it.
Oh, wow.
Because they had been it was like they were just sitting in some dorm room with the guy who nicked it, going like, I got this thing, check it out. And then they're just like, man, that's not cool. And they actually returned it. It was just so odd.
Well, it's good that you berated everybody, because you put a guilt trip on them that it got
I
returned.
don't know. I mean, when my head hits the pillow, that's just like one of like 25 things I think of as like, I could have really handled that better. I really just should have kept the lid on. It didn't matter that much in some ways, I don't think.
Well, it's funny that you say that, because Rachel in Montana wrote in, I embarrassed myself after your show over a decade ago, and it still haunts me. May I be forgiven? Doesn't say what happened. Okay.
I have no idea. What happened? Does she say what happened?
No. Maybe she will call in and tell us what the story was on that, but you are forgiven, Rachel.
A lot of people just beat themselves up for being kind of like, for stuttering or being overly nervous, but it's just like that's the way it goes.
We have a and I don't know if I've ever mentioned this to you, maybe I have, but we have a radio spot that we air on our station of when I went up to the cities and you guys were doing an in-store at a bookstore, and I waited in line to get a station ID from you, and I had the phone number, or I had the information on my hand what radio station we were and things like that. And so you read it off of my hand, and I didn't write it in a way that you could read it very easily. So you said it differently, and I corrected you, and then you said, "Oh, well, that doesn't look like that now, does it?" And I said, "No, it doesn't." And then you said, "Hello, this is Joan Jett of They Might Be Giants." And
oh yeah.
And I didn't catch it at the time, and I played it for Tim, and he's like, "Oh my God!" He said, "I love that Joan Jett thing." I'm like, "What?"
Oh, that's sweet.
But we play that all the time. I love that because
that was one of our
very embarrassed.
Well, we had to do like 500,000 radio IDs. I mean, we joke about how many records we've autographed, that like if you actually have a vinyl record by They Might Be Giants that isn't autographed, that it's probably worth more. Like if there's going to be an Antiques Roadshow, 25 years from now, where people are like, well, the ironic thing is that They Might Be Giants signed so many things that their autographs are actually of no value. I think it's almost inevitable.
No, they're priceless. They're priceless to me.
Hey, this is John of They Might Be Giants. You're listening to Shuffle Function on KMSU 87.7 in stereo.
89.7.
Well, does that look like a 9 to you, really?
No,
now?
it doesn't.
Let me correct that for you. There you go. There you go. Hey, this is Joan Jett of They Might Be Giants. You're listening to Shuffle Function on KMSU 89.7 Rock.
Speaking of which, is there any, because you guys have been releasing things, is there any news on maybe some upcoming album releases or reissues on vinyl that is coming up?
Well, we have this thing that just came out like 3 days ago called Beast of Horns.
Yes.
It's like a live set that I suspect you're playing tracks off of. That's like a very nice, like kind of demo reel for all the various things that our horn section is capable of doing, and that is in the world. But we're closing in on finishing this new album that's been in the works for the past couple of years, and we have to record some strings for it when we get back from the UK, and most of it, all of it's mixed except whatever is going to have strings. So, and I think that's as of right now, that's just one song. So I think it's going to be done relatively soon, but we've got to get it mastered and kind of prep it for the world. And how we actually deal with the release is another question. It's like we haven't really, post-COVID, we've done a lot of touring without like a specific, in Europe we're doing flood shows. In the United States we're doing these big show nights where we change the Spotlight album from night to night. We've stopped doing the like release an album, tour in support of it thing inadvertently. Like we weren't, I guess, because of we just have lost that rhythm of like writing, recording, promoting, that a lot of bands, that's like the way they work. And that's the way we worked for years and years. So but we have a new album that'll be coming out. It's just like it seems like 40 years in, like nobody's really relying on there being a new album to promote as a reason to come out to a show. They just come out to shows.
Sure, yeah. Although I'm super excited to hear whatever's coming. I know it's going to be fantastic.
I think it'll be great too. But I'm not sure that I think for a lot of people, like doing these deep dives is just as interesting or maybe more interesting because you get people who their first album they bought was like Factory Showroom, and you're like, really? It's just like, okay, well, well, we're going to be playing like 10 songs off Factory Germs. Like, oh my God, I'm going to die. So it's just like that is a nice, side benefit of having, so much repertoire.
Yeah. Well, we're coming up on an hour, and we have to ask you the question that I know you've been expecting about what book you are reading.
Well, I just
your tour book, even.
I just got gifted the book, The Splendid and the Vile, but I haven't actually cracked it open. But it's the book. I believe it's the book that kind of has made everyone hate Winston Churchill. So it's an odd like little document. I mean, I'm not like a Winston Churchill fan by any means, but I guess this is like a pretty critical analysis of him. And I just was recently listening to this book on tape of about Elaine May called Miss May Does Not Exist. That is a kind of an interesting portrait of her. And there's this other book that's really kind of unlikely by a business writer. It's called Number Go Up, and it's about the history of Bitcoin. And it's a really, I mean, he's not a, really pro or con. He just sort of, because he was like a business writer, like it was a big story that was kind of underreported when it first started, and he had like access. But what's really funny about the book from a journalistic perspective is that he, as a journalist, was very suspicious that there was one of the businesses that was being run called Tether, that was like he was suspicious that this business was kind of a hoax, that they were lying about how they were doing the thing that they were doing, which is they were saying like, we back up our Bitcoin stuff like dollar for dollar with real live U.S. dollars, and he was like, I don't think that's true. But what's really funny and strange is in the story, which goes on for years, is that Sam Bankman-Fried is somebody that the reporter talks to about his suspicions that this other enterprise is a hoax. So it's like there's like Sam Bankman-Fried, who has been revealed to be quite the trickster in the world of Bitcoin, was before he was arrested for fraud, he was kind of very much like Bernie Madoff was like, was so widely respected in his field. Sam Bankman-Fried was considered a reformer in the world of Bitcoin. He was always calling for regulation. He was always calling for like controls in the government to like be part of like sort of certifying the legitimacy of Bitcoin companies. And it's just like a funny thing, like that you realize that like these fraudsters can kind of incorporate that into their charade, that like they like kind of wrapping yourself in the flag is a good strategy if you're perpetrating a hoax.
I love that you're going to be reading a Winston Churchill book and going to the UK.
Oh yeah, I was actually thinking like, am I going to take this through customs? Like, are people going to be? Is the customs agent going to take this? Because he, among conservative people there, he's beloved, but I think among progressives, he's considered kind of a drag. It's very mixed feelings about him.
Yeah. Well, we're coming up on an hour, and I don't want to take up any more of your time because I know that you guys are so busy. But I want to wish you safe travels on the tour, and look forward to talking to you again next year for year number 12.
Absolutely. What's the glorious day that you play all the music?
November 15th.
Hold on a second. I'm going to put it in my calendar here.
You're playing Nottingham that night.
Okay. Well, maybe we can do a little like live, 15-minute convo at some other time. Or, but I'll definitely. Are you going to have all the great graphic stuff that you do happening?
Yeah, I think that Tom has some stuff up. Yep. So he's doing like the coloring contest and stuff. I know we don't.
That's fantastic.
Because last year for the 10-year anniversary, we had art from Heinrich, who is a listener, and she was going to do it this year, but she ended up moving and stuff just got too much. But Tom has some great graphics for this year also.
Well, I've always been impressed at how you guys really deliver on that front. It's cool stuff. So
we will let Tom know.
Tom is going to blush.
Yep, Tom will be very blushing. So thank you for that.
Thanks so much, John.
Yeah,
thank you. Talk to you guys later.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you again. Bye-bye.
Wow.
Yes, Tom is blushing.
Oh yeah, you're going to get that. By the way, you're listening to your local independent public radio station, the Maverick, KMSU FM and HD Mankato, KMSK Austin, proud member of Ampers.
Minnesota State University, Mankato.